Great. Thanks, Michelle. People are still joining right now. Let's give it just one quick moment.
Sounds great.
And good morning, everyone. As a friendly reminder, please put your name and affiliation into the chat when you're able to.
All right.
Chet in Idaho. Good to see you, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Go ahead, Michelle. Yeah, sorry.
All good. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. We're glad to have you here. As was already said, we look forward to just seeing your name and affiliation in the chat. And I believe today we are in store for a great roundtable discussion. So I'm going to pass it to our Executive Director, Matt Legoshin, for some quick updates before that. Matt, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Legoshin, Executive Director of AMCC, and this is our Monday National 30-minute call, which most of you know, but I say this up front just so folks who are new to our merry band, we level set on that. We're a group of stakeholders from regions around the country and what we call BFFs, folks from the public, private, nonprofit sectors, really helping to strengthen the American project from the bottom up with manufacturing focus. We're open source, collaborative. We're also designated by the federal government as the nation's community of practice through the Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration. So yeah, and the putting your name and affiliation in chat and even your email is part of this whole networking thing, so we can get to know one another and exchange best practices. One of the cool things about these weekly calls is building trust amongst stakeholders across the country, and we encourage you to engage with, you hear something from another region, just engage on those other people. We have tons of great stories about lessons learned to help a region, herd their own cat, so to speak, but also connect with other regions across the country to learn best practices and really, in many cases, partner around, substantive issues that cross jurisdictional lines. So put your name and affiliation in chat. We appreciate that. Like Michelle, one of our BFFs from the Century Foundation, was saying, we have a roundtable discussion, so we want to draw you out as much as we can to get your take. And so this is not a presentation so much as really a conversation for 30 minutes today. I mentioned, we are going to be talking about our community of practice around manufacturing, but a little bit of background about these other communities of practice. There's basically 9 of them, and they overlap. And so we wanted to bring on, as we have in the past, and we want to kind of on a regular basis in the future, other communities of practice to build some synergies amongst these communities of practice, like we have been done really over the last years. Again, communities of practice, a little bit of the background again, we divested in manufacturing in the last century, this century, the second decade. We said, we've woken up and we say, okay, we need all these private and public nonprofit sector partners to come together to really strengthen bottom up the manufacturing ecosystem. And the federal government has wanted to play its part in that kind of bottom up ecosystem development. And so in these 4 big pieces of legislation that came out in recent years, there's different threads of federal government intervention to help regions. One is the ARPA, American Rescue Plan, the Infrastructure Bill or Law, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's seeding all of these regions with money, but it's up to regional leaders like you to weave that together into kind of a regionally relevant set of public and private partnership activities that produce meaningful outcomes. So these 9 communities of practice came from that American Rescue Plan. funding, very small amount of funding, and we got a little bit, but another organization around technology-based economic development interventions was created too, affectionately called TBED. And so it's out there. We're trying to model how to work with them. Like I said, we've been doing that in many contexts. In our roadshow, we've been trying to weave in these other communities of practice. We have Becky on from Jobs for the Future. They are the community of practice for the jobs community, the Good Jobs Challenge community of practice. We've been doing it with the RTI International, which is the community of practice for the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. And we did last week, we had a webinar with the National Association of Counties. They are the community of practice for coal communities. And so we partnered with them. So it's a work in progress. These things overlap. So for example, through our lens, we have the big six and what makes up a thriving regional manufacturing ecosystem. Innovation and technology is an important part of the big six: research and innovation and operational improvement. Those are technology plays. And so having Jason Rittenberg from SSTI, the technology-based community of practice, on every month or so to give us some updates is what we're going to be doing today. But before we turn to you, Jason, I want to highlight a few things from our AMCC update, as we like to do every week. And it's packed. If you're not getting the AMCC update, just send a note to David or put your name in the chat or whatever, and he can get you the AMCC update. Lots of good stuff in there. I talked about the NACO webinar from last week. That is an incredible webinar, you guys. You got to check it out, because thanks to our roadshow and our friends in Peoria, Illinois, we had a great story in there of what I really call like a rapid response, a community coming around a coal plant closing, and they responded like in months to get the people that worked in that coal facility new jobs, good jobs, manufacturing type jobs. And that was a fact. It's almost like every region ought to have a rapid response plan for if there's a big closure, and I would say a rapid response plan in addition to what should be like a early warning system, right? Ideally, we have early warning system, so we don't have to do what incredible group in Peoria did to rapidly respond to take care of their people and stuff. Yeah, so that was super, super good. David, I don't know if the webinar is up on the NACO website, but if it is, at least you can put their website into the chat. But that's going to be a great webinar that you can share with folks on rapid response. And that relates to another activity we do that was also in the AMCC update, and that's our podcast. Coming up, we have Ben Linville Engler from the Manufacturing Technology Collaborative in Massachusetts. This is where AFOA is. He got a Collier Award, you guys, on how they rallied their manufacturers in Massachusetts to respond to COVID when COVID hit. That's why he got that award. He worked very closely with Liz Reynolds, who became the White House manufacturing kind of senior advisor. So, for rapid response, I would say that those two examples, that NACO webinar from last week and listening to the Ben Linville Engler podcast that's now up on Spotify and every other podcast, those are really good examples. Very cool stuff. Back to the AMCC update, we need you guys to share your weekly news, like what's ever happening in your network and ecosystem. Share those. David does a incredible job of kind of absorbing and together he and I prioritize what to share in our update. But it depends on you guys giving us more info So thanks in advance for that. The Urban Manufacturing Alliance has a very cool project in the southeastern states. I don't know, Michelle, you want to just give a quick nutshell about what you guys are doing there in 30 seconds?
Sure, the Urban Manufacturing Alliance just released a request for proposals to have a cohort, particularly in areas in the southeastern part of the United States for small businesses and also particularly manufacturers of color who want to receive technical assistance. And so very excited about that. That proposal is due, I believe, in mid-February. So I'm going to put that in the chat for anyone who is interested. It's a really great opportunity for small businesses and manufacturers, particularly those of color, to get help with access to capital and expanding their businesses. I'll put it in the chat now for us.
And that's the kind of activity, we're planning these road shows like we have last year and this year. Shout out to Brian Tucker in Alabama. We're going to be talking later today, but the last week in February, we're going to be going throughout Alabama. Super psyched about that. Nice work, Brian, on that. But that's where we can share many of these opportunities that, our regional leaders, our muscles, our bottom-up muscles in regions around the country are not as strong as they could be, working together over and over again on different, kind of subject matter related interventions is super important. So thank you for that, Michelle. Another one in the AMCC update is the SBA American Seed Fund Tour. SBIR is an incredible program. They're going around the country. We're hoping to, co-create some activity with SBA on their road shows, with our road shows. That's exciting. And then a really cool article in there, people talk, the Manufacturing USA Institutes, we have 17 of them. There's a great article, David, you could drop in the chat there, about how do you work with them, right? The Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program has kind of a requirement to work with them, but, there are no other requirements, in many of almost all of these other initiatives. But it's still smart to try to weave together the activities that these institutes are doing around particular technologies, different technologies that are one each in each of those 17 Manufacturing USA Institutes. So that's cool. There's a boatload of funding announcements, a couple of dozen that David goes through and updates on occasion for opportunities for your regional leaders. It's a lot, I know, but best evidence, to build those regional muscles is in there. Thanks for sending us more. So now, with that wind up, let me turn to Jason, one of the other 9 communities of practice around technology-based economic development. Welcome, Jason. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you, Matt, and everybody. And thanks for the chance to talk to everyone today. So as Matt mentioned, Jason Brittenberg, Vice President at SSTI, and we are the lead organization on EDA's tech-based economic development community of practice. We're also a partner with RTI to the Build Back Better or Building Better Regions community of practice focused on the BRC program. So yeah, that's the one acronym I'll go with today and try to be better other than that. So as Matt said, I'm excited about having a new kind of partnership here, trying to be better about sharing information across groups. So the goal is to take a few minutes about once a month and share some updates for what's going on with the TBED community of practice. There should be a lot of common interest, I think. And so hopefully that'll be valuable. Would certainly appreciate any input. Send it to myself or to Matt if there are particular things you'd like to hear about. Basically, just quick background, SSTI, if you're not familiar, our focus is on strengthening initiatives to create a better future through science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So we're a membership organization, 160 plus state governments, local governments, nonprofits, institutions of higher ed, federal labs that are members, and then a lot of other organizations as well that participate with us through conferences, webinars, communities of practice, and other things. Basically, the groups that we're working with are really focused on trying to understand the level of activity in those science, tech, innovation, entrepreneurship areas I mentioned before, and then wanting to know what types of programs they could put in place or policies or other initiatives that would help them have more of that activity that's important to a strong regional economy, or else create better results from that activity. So things like new jobs, new technologies, of course, and new companies. So with the EDA community of practice, we're really working across all of TBED. And if you don't mind, Matt, I'll just share a slide here that I think will, a couple of slides that'll help demonstrate
go
what
for
we're
it.
about. I know TBED is a kind of a weird term. It's in fact, in some ways, a little bit of an older term. SSTI has been around since the mid-90s. We kind of transitioned to regional innovation economies is what we were talking about more, but then EDA came back to TBED. So, here we are, which is great. But so if it's a term that you're not familiar with, basically what we're talking about is you've got your regional economy on the one end, you're trying to grow technology companies, you're trying to get tech into existing companies, obviously something that gets talked about a lot in advanced manufacturing contexts, and ultimately trying to support the kinds of companies and technologies that are going to help create a better future for society overall. So TBED is really just the way that you get there. I tend to kind of think that it's helpful to talk about that in two ways. One, if you're looking at the elements of a strong innovation economy, research capacity, transforming tech from the lab to the market, having a strong culture of entrepreneurship, access to risk capital, and strong talent that can work in these companies. With a TBED strategy, you're either trying to increase the capacity of all of those different areas, or you're trying to make sure that what you have going on in those areas is yielding you more of the results. And so your TBED strategy might be doing one or both of those types of things at once. So that's a broad nutshell. Happy to talk specifics, but I know a lot of you through working with programs, whether it's MEP or Manufacturing USA, or I recognize a lot of people on the call, you probably understand this. So I won't get any more in the weeds for right now, unless anybody wants me to. The other thing that I'll mention for the community of practice that we have at EDA, we, like AMCC, are working across EDA's funding streams because with TBED being one of EDA's investment priorities, EDA can fund a TBED all across the agency. So you'll see relevant funding from Public Works, from Economic Adjustment. The Build to Scale program is really corely focused on TBED. There's the STEM Talent Challenge, then the newer Tech Hubs program, of course. And so again, EDA can really fund important activities or infrastructure for TBED across the whole agency. A couple of things that we're doing, if you would like to get involved, just as a kind of core example of something that we've done recently. We had a webinar just last week with the NATO Research Foundation, another one of those communities of practice. There's this focus on the economic development districts, talking about tech-based economic development and CEDS. CEDS is EDA's comprehensive economic development strategy, as many of you may be aware. EDA really encourages regions to have these strategies in place. As the name comprehensive suggests, it's focused on a lot of different areas of economic development, from your infrastructure to your workforce to an equity-focused strategy, industry resiliency, and can include innovation, although that's not a core EDA requirement. And really what we were trying to do with this webinar is trying to build some better shared language between the districts that are more responsible for the CEDS plans and a tech-based economic development focused organization. We found that those two groups talk well in some areas of the country, but it's not a given. So the purpose of this webinar really was to try to improve some of that language, try to share an example of a recent CED. Central Ohio actually just created its first CEDS and its first economic development district, and included a couple of different TBED organizations, Ohio State University, and then Rev1 Ventures in Columbus on its strategic planning committee. And so highlighting that example here, we'll have this webinar posted to our website shortly. So if this is an area that's of interest to you, strongly encourage you to check that out. And then some other ways to get involved. We've got webinars that'll be coming up soon on using Salesforce for grant reporting. That's what we use, a couple of others, but wanted to demo that for people. We did a demo on how people are starting to use Airtable now for grant monitoring, which was really fascinating, and that's available for free on our website as well. Talking more about TBED metrics, particularly looking at lab to market metrics and how different regions are measuring that effectively. And then we'll talk about funding opportunities once or if the federal government gives us a new budget bill. Obviously, we're hoping we'll have that by March 8th. So we'll want to highlight new TBED funding that you can expect throughout the year once that gets done. We also have monthly calls kind of like this, but for more specific practice areas. So we've got entrepreneurship development, lab to market, risk capital, and then putting out a couple on a more working basis that are available. So you're welcome to sign up for those at our website. We've got videos explaining funding sources where we're doing interviews with different program managers about what funding programs are available for TBED, and then working on more research. We've got some data on investment tools, or on investment levels, I should say, because PitchBook is the kind of best platform for understanding capital investment by region, but it's a $30,000 license. So we're trying to share that information at the local level as much as we can, so that not everybody needs to pay for that. And putting out resource on the Small Business Investment Corporation and other programs too. So a lot of things coming up in the future. Do some more sharing about kind of what we're hearing. Happy to answer questions, Matt, from you or the community, but wanted to make sure people kind of understood where we were coming from, and that you can be involved. Because again, whether you're grant funded now by EDA or you're pursuing grant funding, you're able to participate and benefit from all those things I mentioned with the community of practice.
Well, that's why I wanted to jump in there, Jason, and talk about how you're a membership organization, but you have a lot of open source tools. And yeah, the community of practice in your case is focused on EDA grantees. There are a lot of regions around there that don't have a lot of EDA grants, but they're involved in the AMCC community of practice because they want to build up their manufacturing ecosystem. But you have a lot of tools and tactics within the kind of innovation and entrepreneurship and capital access world that can be used. Talk a little bit more about that if you can, so that folks feel like they're welcome to use those resources.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we'd like to joke that we are very good at the nonprofit side of our business. So yes, we do have that membership model when, of course, welcome organizations that are interested in getting more, personal information, custom technical assistance, and funding opportunities to join SSTI. But a lot of what we put out there is available to anyone. Our conference, we try to keep that to a modest fee. You don't need to be a member to go to our annual conference. And on the TBED Community Practice resources, that is available to everyone. Again, we've defined it broadly. So if you have a current grant, or you are someone who's interested in EDA funding, and given that EDA funds quite a diversity of things and their eligibility is generally pretty broad, that can cover quite a few groups. So all the things I mentioned that are core to the community of practice, whether it's those webinars, the sub-community calls, the video series, or the research that we're putting out, that's all available on the website. And you're welcome to, again, reach out to me. I put my email in the chat, but I'll go ahead and throw it in again, or to the entire community of practice team. And one of the things that we're doing that I didn't put on here, but we're also just happy to have one-on-one conversations. We do that with a lot of groups, especially if you're newer to TBED, kind of help you talk through what your region is, what you're seeing as a challenge, different ways that either we or other organizations or EDA might have resources that could support you. So again, if you take a look at the website, and I'll readily admit that our website tends to come across just as a blog, because to that nonprofit piece, we put out a lot of news every single week on what's happening with state and local politics or policies and federal programs related to TBED. So sometimes groups don't always get into the different resources we have. So if any of that's overwhelming, or if you're not sure how to get involved, please feel free to shoot me a note too.
Hey, Jason. So, you probably know, but, in the US, the estimate is there's about 250,000 manufacturers. And way over 90% of those are small, medium-sized enterprises. And so Sarah asked a good question there about, what tools and tactics can SSTI, share to help that universe? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, good to see you. It has been a while. So one thing that I should mention is that when we talk about technology, we're not just talking about IT or software. So most of our members do work with manufacturers or with energy production, biotech, and other things as well. When it comes to really small enterprises, so first, if you're talking about newer and tech-focused enterprises, that really is the core of a lot of TBED strategies. So you might see all different types of assistance depending on where the company is in its development process, from an initiative like a small business voucher that's going to help a company actually get access to special university lab space or researchers, or different types of kind of trial licenses that are out there in some regions, and that NASA is at the federal level has been piloting to help new and small businesses understand the commercial potential of a new technology before they really need to invest the big dollars into further development on it. So there's some interesting programs there. Capital access, of course, is a big issue. If you're talking about a new or a tech-focused company, it can be hard to go out and get big financing. And sometimes even a non-bank loan vehicle might still be a challenge. So we talk with groups a lot about how to have patient risk tolerant capital that can support new enterprises like this. For small enterprises that are more established and looking at going into new technology areas, again, sometimes that licensing or research assistance can be helpful. Some groups, especially if they're more cluster focused, might be providing some more hands-on technical assistance as well. So a lot of different initiatives out there. And that's one of the reasons why, by the way, I'll add that sometimes having a conversation can be really helpful too, to understand the real details of what you're looking at, and why we've also divided kind of the broader TBET community into those areas more focused on the lab to market issues or on entrepreneurship or on capital, because my overall philosophy is that public policy, public investment tends to work best if you can be as efficient and targeted as possible. And so really understanding the specific challenges that's out there in your region. There's definitely something you can design, but if you design something overly broad, then it's not going to be very effective or certainly not efficient for the public dollars. And so really wanting to drill in on what the challenges are of the small enterprises is important.
That's awesome, Jason. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for that question. And yeah, I mean, this stuff isn't going away, right? We have to strengthen our muscles on bottom up, and we need every public and private partner working together to do that one region at a time. So it's great to be partners with you, Jason. Thanks, everyone. You know, we try to keep this, Jason, to right at 30 minutes. Open for any other questions you can put in chat or follow up with Jason however you like. Any I don't know if there's any hands up, David, or any other questions. I don't see any. Any other Chet, you're on from Idaho. I wanted to say at the beginning, let's connect with that. There's that Washington, Idaho Tech Hub. So maybe let's chat offline about how we connect to the Idaho piece of that. That'd be very cool. Good to see you. There's some new messages coming in.
I think there's a question from James in Texas, Matt.
Oh yeah, James, please.
Yes, Matt, I don't know how to download the text message to your local version so we can, you know, connect to other members. Would you be able to share the other messages, the contact information? Because this message, you know, we have today could be very important for us to, you know, connect.
Yeah, David will put in the chat the link to our website. These things, in most cases, like whatever, 90% of our calls are recorded. And so they're put immediately up on the website, or, you know, very short period of time, put up on the website so you can access them there and then share them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good. Looking forward to visiting you guys down by the border. That'll be great.
Looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Michelle, let me turn it back to you. We got 1 minute left.
Thanks, Matt. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Enjoyed the roundtable discussion, and we're looking forward to seeing you all again next Monday, January 29th at the same time. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.